And good morning. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. I am Glenn Clark. As always, he's Griffin. And since it's a Friday, Stan the Fan Charles, our chief grand poobah here at PressBox, is back with. That was a very dramatic fade, Griffin. We got to work on your fading. It went from
the beat also comes down at one point.
I understand. So. We got to work. We got to. They still you fade the music out, not just all of a sudden from. It's got to be an in between those two things. We're gonna do fading practice.
Gradations.
Yes, exactly right. We'll work on that next week. Stan, it's good to see you, sir.
Good to see both of you. Good to be in the studio again.
It was a dramatic day at the ballpark yesterday. We will talk about that. Obviously, the Orioles made some dramatic decisions after the game yesterday. We'll talk about that. We'll get into the Orioles pitching woes a little bit later on this morning. Coming up on the program today, going to catch up with an old friend. I say old. I mean, I guess he's still a young man, but he's basically a veteran now in baseball. Gavin Sheets, of course, the pride of Gilman, the son of the great Larry Sheets, and all-around good guy. The Orioles take on the White Sox this weekend, so thankfully it's not in Baltimore because it feels like whenever Gavin Sheets comes to Baltimore, I swear to God, I don't have the stats in front of me, but he
hits a home run, doesn't he?
At least one.
Yeah.
Every time he plays in Baltimore.
Well, he came disguised as Brent Rooker.
Yeah, correct. That was Gavin the entire time. Yeah. Jesus. Well, actually, Kevin Brown had a line when they who finally struck him out later on in the game. Was it Baker? It was Baker, right?
Yeah.
That finally struck him out. He said, "Give him the Cy Young.
Right.
Give him the MVP. Give him all of it. Finally getting this guy out." We'll catch up with Gavin here in a bit. Also, later on this morning, we're going to meet the newest incoming Maryland transfer, Chance Stevens from Loyola Marymount. He is known as a sniper. He shot 37% from behind the arc last season, and Maryland desperately needs that. If there was anything that they were missing, front court depth, we'll add that to the list. They could definitely use some more front court depth, but also significantly a threat to hit three-point shots. They were not so great in that department a year ago, so hopefully Chance Stevens can help that out. We will meet him.
I'm just curious. His nickname is Sniper.
Yes.
And he's a three-point specialist.
Yes.
And he averaged 6 points a game.
Well, the problem is we're not sure how many other things he does.
Right.
Right.
No, I mean, I'm look, if Kevin Willard and the assistant David Cox are familiar with this kid and wanted him, I'm sure he's a solid player and can offer that. I'm just curious why the average wasn't like 9 or 10.
Well, I think there would be twofold. One, do you remember? I compared him the other day to Mike Jones. Remember the Mike Jones story where Mike Jones, of course, was a McDonald's All-American, so there was a lot more hype surrounding him.
Right.
But there was intense frustration from Maryland fans because Mike Jones wasn't getting as many minutes, and when he was on the floor, you could see how lethal of a shooter he was. And Gary Williams would always say, right, but he's not interested in playing defense.
Right.
And that's now I don't know if that's the case with Chance Stevens. I couldn't tell you, right? And I have no idea. But you always wonder about these scenarios because if somebody is shooting 37% from three, I would agree. You would think that you'd like to get him on the floor a little bit more. But it was pointed out when we talked to Patrick Stevens the other day, he doesn't drive. Now Patrick didn't watch every Loyola Marymount game. And Loyola Marymount had a better team than I think people realized.
Pretty good last year.
They beat St. Mary's. They beat Gonzaga. They
were a top 40 team.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair, right? So it's not. It could also just be that it was a depth issue and he just didn't get as many minutes. We'll see. But the shooting alone, Maryland could use one more player on the floor who is a threat to shoot because almost no one was a season ago, and yet they played pretty well anyway, which is remarkable. So we'll do that during the course of today's show. Stan, we always have to start the day by going to the Lamar-O-Meter.
You mean the Lamar-O-Meter brought to you by Glory Days Grill?
Look at you. Great food, good sports at Glory Days Grill. You know that. I'm assuming because you were at the baseball game, you didn't get to watch much of the press conference yesterday.
Did not.
So Odell Beckham, of course, was introduced yesterday. I'm in the nice way. This has been a bit over the top this week for a one-year signing. The lengths that the Ravens have gone, the tarmac videos, the eagle has landed stuff. It's bringing the entire family out. Yes, it's a lot for a player that they have committed to for 1 year. A 1 year signing. They are going really over the top.
I mean,
with this.
Again, I feel like there's an argument that he is the biggest free agent signing in the last 10 years. So
he's not. He's the most famous free agent signing. It's in no ways. The Ravens know that because they gave drastically more money to Marcus Williams last year. Drastically. This is not, but you know what? This is a good chance to talk about this. What you are reflecting is very much a sign of the times.
Yeah.
A sign of the times is fame outweighs reality, right? Like, because Odell Beckham is so famous, we have to treat him a certain way that we wouldn't treat Marcus Williams, despite the fact that everyone knows Marcus Williams was a far more impactful free agent signing at the time, including the Ravens, because they gave him a far more robust contract than they gave Odell Beckham. But Odell Beckham is a different level of famous. He is a bit of a pop culture figure, so you have to treat him a certain way because of it. Begrudgingly, I understand that, right? Like, I do get it.
I think there were two purposes to the Odell Beckham signing. Clearly, one was anybody that could catch the football. I mean, they could sign, what's his name, Harold, who was the star receiver for the Eagles?
Harold Carmichael? We're going to Harold Carmichael?
They could sign Harold Carmichael, and we'd be talking about
it perhaps
like
would be an upgrade.
Right. It's an upgrade. Yeah. At least he's tall.
Right.
You know. But the other thing, it's clearly that this is a
Lamar Jackson
move made to entice Lamar Jackson. And I talked to Jerry Coleman yesterday. I went out to the ballpark and bumped into him. He says it's a 1 year. It's a push for a 1 year window to win.
Yeah,
with Lamar and Odell Beckham.
So and I love Jerry. I think he's missing part of it. Like, if that's the case, it's a disastrous contract. It's got to be more of a thought than that. If they are going just to say we're only going to try for 1 year, they're going to be sucking up $11 million in dead cap space the following year. Like, that's a disastrous way of making decisions. The thought has to be, well, it's a 1 year experiment. We're going to see if we fall on our face, if Odell Beckham's just done, then we're going to have to pay a really significant penalty for that, and we'll live with it.
Right.
The hope would be that Odell Beckham's clicking with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson says, I want this to continue, and you get both of them to stick around for a little bit longer.
Are you of the opinion, are the two of them good friends?
I don't know if they're good friends as much as they're like, I didn't know that Odell had kind of settled in that South Florida area.
Okay.
I was not aware of that. I think they have developed a relationship.
Okay.
A mutual. A few people have brought up the simple factor of Lamar Jackson looks around that Ravens locker room, and nobody in that locker room, the guys that he's close with, cannot possibly understand what it's like to be Lamar Jackson. Marlon Humphrey was joking with me about this. Marlon Humphrey, who's, I don't know, arguably, Justin Tucker is the second most famous player on the Ravens, but Marlon Humphrey's top five.
Top five,
right?
No question about it.
Marlon Humphrey was telling us a story about how then they went out to dinner, and Marlon sat there in anonymity. Yeah. Marlon sat there, and nobody approached him, and nobody said a word to him, and he was able to eat his dinner, and Lamar was never left alone the entire time. So the value of the fame of Odell Beckham, the thing that you're confusing with he's the biggest free agent, well, he's the most famous. The value of that is it's someone that can kind of understand what it's like to be Lamar Jackson. It's the first person that Lamar's been a teammate with that can actually kind of
relate to what Lamar goes through.
100%. There is a consideration there that isn't nothing, that is valuable for Lamar because, okay, you and I are on the guys that I'm cool with on this roster. I can be cool with James Prochet, whoever it is, but they don't get it. They don't know. You do, and so that creates a kinship between the two of them that's a little bit different than everything else.
So I was anxious to come in and do the show with you today because maybe you can help me with this.
Okay.
I can't remember who wrote the article, but it was definitely on the CBS site when I went to check my fantasy team, which is in the toilet already after 3 weeks.
There we go.
But it's been a good run for 3 years. Now I'm back into reality.
Okay.
No, but seriously, somebody who wrote the key story about it, he did not write this. I mean, in other words, he didn't, but it was in quotation marks from somebody else. And by the time I wanted to read who that was to remind me, I couldn't find the story. but it was basically said that Bisciotti had been in touch
It's
with
interesting,
Beckham
right?
the entire time.
I did think about you as we were getting that
because
information.
I've said that
yes.
only one person can solve this
Right.
Lamar thing, and that's Bisciotti.
Right. So why would Steve Bisciotti be so involved with Odell Beckham if he wasn't so?
That was my question. You did read the same thing.
Josina Anderson was the first to report that.
That's who it was.
A few days ago. Yep. She was the first to report that Steve Bisciotti had been heavily involved with the Odell Beckham.
And not only was heavily involved in it, actually was quoted, the quote from, what's her name?
Josina Anderson.
Josina Anderson was that we were also hoping that this would square things with Lamar.
So
that was
again,
the actual quote.
I'm going to get to the actual meter reading here in 1 second. Two things.
Got to go up.
Okay, did you listen to the press conference yesterday?
No.
Okay, so I'll get to that. So to your point, yes, and I do think that they, at least for the scenario where there's not going to be a deal done, and I remember you would bring up, well, what about the insurance factor?
That's not happening.
In a world in which you are accepting that Lamar is only playing on the tag this season, how can you get a little bit of buy-in? Look, dude, we are trying to meet you in the middle. We're trying to give you something. We went out of our way.
Mm-hmm.
Would you please? And obviously Odell Beckham is creating that relationship. They're getting together. Would you please now come play ball with us? Show up
on time even, or halfway through.
Yeah, maybe not necessarily. Like, I think that they understand that there's almost an obligation from the Players Association that if you're playing on the tag, you can't show up on day 1.
Right.
But show up.
Day 10.
Don't show up the week before the season starts.
Right.
Like, maybe show up a couple of weeks.
Midway.
Yeah, we'll live with the fact that you're not out there in July. We'll live with it if you're not there until the middle of August. But give us a couple of weeks in order to get ready and be bought in, be invested, be, fired up when you get here, despite the fact that you don't have the long-term
You're only
deal.
going to be making $32 million.
Well, I still don't think that's going to happen. I still think that they're still going to have to go back and say, what's a number we can make this work, or what's a bonus structure that we can create in order to make this work. Yeah. I don't believe that it'll be for $32 million when we get there. But I do think that's not nothing. And again, it's why originally the meter skyrocketed all the way up to, it got as high as 95% this week. It's currently sitting at 92. Now, yesterday at the press conference, the big takeaway from everyone is Odell Beckham saying he was given no assurances that Lamar Jackson would be his quarterback this season, that he's hopeful, that he thought there was an opportunity to play with Lamar Jackson, but he was given no assurances. Stan, I get it. The Ravens can't do that. They can't promise Odell Beckham that Lamar Jackson is going to be his quarterback. It doesn't work that way, right? Like, you can't make that promise. But I think reasonable people can read between the tea leaves, as my 5-year-old son has an opinion. He'd like to offer a take about the Lamar Jackson situation. Sam, buddy, I'm in the middle of doing the show, okay? I got a call? All right, I'll check it in a minute, pal.
It could be Lamar Jackson.
It might be. Maybe it is. I do appreciate.
He would be calling Griffin.
For what it's. Yeah, I think so. I do appreciate the fact that my 5-year-old, because I'm pretty sure that after the call goes away, they can just keep watching their show. So I do appreciate the fact that he thought it was important enough to come in and let me know. Thank you, pal. I appreciate it. Sweet kid. I got it. The kids are
great kids.
The kids are on spring break this week, and of all the weeks, both of our mothers are out of town this week. Or today. Today, my mother's been gone. Her mother left today. So we are, for one day, we are.
I'm glad you clarified that. I thought you meant that both of the kids' mothers were
they have two separate mothers. Anyway, so we, I think, as reasonable people, can deduct. Yeah, I get it, but there's no world that you're going out clubbing with Lamar Jackson on Sunday night if there isn't some.
Yeah, Lamar's just really happy for him.
Yeah, right. Just said, yeah, dude, I'm happy that you signed with a team I may or may not play for. Go ahead, I think as reasonable people, we can only overreact so much. Now, for the purpose of the meter, because the Lamar-O-Meter is supposed to be a general reflection of not just one person's opinion, but taking in, as scientifically as possible, all of the information that we have, I do believe that part of the press conference yesterday requires the meter to go down. I just think that's the way that it works.
Can I ask you one question about the meter?
Yes.
Is it the Lamar-O-Meter or
Right.
the Lamar-O-Meter?
It's Lamometer.
It's
Lamometer.
It's the
Lamar-O-meter.
It's the Lamar-O-Meter, but Griffin says Lamometer afterwards.
Because it's a Lamometer.
Lamar-O-Meter.
And then you change in the fact that like the mom is involved with Lamar, and it's kind of
the
a
mom,
like you get.
Point
Point
and
is,
it's also got
there's all of that in there, all of that in there. I'm not really sure how it relates, but it does, and we'll go with it, Stan. We will bump the.
Well, Raven fans are so stressed.
Why does that look like it was still at 95? Why did the meter look like? Was that really where? It was at 92.
Did you already move it already?
No, I haven't moved it.
Oh, okay. That looks like 92 to me.
I'm not moving it significantly. I'm
Is
just
that
bumping.
90?
No, I'm bumping it back to 88.
Whoa.
88%.
Seems like a steep drop.
No, it's not a steep drop. It was 92.
88?
Settle down. That's a 4% drop.
You did
Calm down.
88 because you want Des Bryant back? And
No, that's not the reason I did 88 at all. No, 88 just reflects the fact that Odell Beckham said I was not given assurances that Lamar Jackson would be the quarterback here, which, again, I don't think is a drastic change. It doesn't lead me back to it being 50-50. I still think it's overwhelming that Lamar will be here. But it's just one more reminder that part of what happened for Odell Beckham was still that there was only one team that was willing to pay him what he was looking for anyway.
Right.
And if they had said to him, dude, we have no idea if Lamar is going to be your quarterback or not, Odell Beckham probably would have said, yeah, but am I getting the number that I wanted? Do I get to save face here? Do I get to make it look like I got exactly what I was supposed to get? Okay, I'll take that deal. I think that's Odell Beckham's reality at this point, is that he had to do it. So I'm bumping it down just slightly to 88%.
And he also has a relationship previous with Todd Monken.
Correct. And we had Freddie Kitchens on the show yesterday, of
Right.
course, who was the head coach for the Browns that season, where
Right.
they would have liked to have won more football games because there was so much hype going into the
Yep.
season. They only went 6-10 that year. But it was a very productive year for it was the last productive year that Odell Beckham has had in his career as he finished over 1,000 yards. And, that's not nothing. And the
Right.
fact that I've said all along, the conversations we've had with people that have been around Odell Beckham this season have painted a far different picture of Odell Beckham, the teammate, than I think we had crafted in our minds about Odell Beckham, the sort of prototypical wide receiver diva, the guy that always is going to demand the ball, those types of things. Everyone that we've talked to, between Freddie Kitchens, Mark Ross, who worked with him with the Giants, DeMarco Farr, of course, was out in L.A., everyone has said this is a beloved teammate, that as teammates go, yes, you're going to deal with more media attention, you're going to deal with more that comes along with Odell Beckham's fame, and sure, he's going to be a guy that's going to want the ball and he's going to demand the ball, and I think there are a lot of coaches that would say, right, so he's a wide receiver. Like that's the way
That's in the DNA.
That's the way these guys operate. I'll live with that. They portray him as a very popular teammate, as a loved teammate, and I think the Ravens, and the fact that Todd Monken, to your point, Stan, said, I want more of that. Like, I worked with him once, and I want to do it.
I sign off on
right.
I can make that happen.
I'm good to do it again. I think says a lot about where they are. So, yeah, 88%.
Do you think he will come on the Tyus Bowser show this year?
I think it's a non-zero. I mean,
Yeah.
Tyus is just such a popular guy.
Could that be the next meter?
What? Will Odell Beckham come on the Tyus Bowser show? We actually have some future meter ideas already in place. The meter might be a permanent part. In fact, there's a non-zero chance that at some point there are 2 meters that are up in this room. Remind me to tell you about it there at some point during a commercial break. I don't want to give anything away.
The next one could be a thermometer.
A thermometer just to read the
like
temperature?
The Beckham
Oh,
thermometer.
okay.
Beckham,
All right. How hot is
Bowser
How hot is he?
thermometer.
All right. I'm not opposed to that. Tyus has obviously brought out some massive guests over the years, so it would not. Last year, between Mark Andrews, Marlon Humphrey, Calais Campbell, I mean, Justin Houston.
Do we have a date for the first show yet?
Not yet, but
It's coming.
We'll get there. We were working on another idea. Man, there's so many things I haven't had a chance to tell you about, just because I don't get to see you every day. But there were some other things that we were kind of working on, and maybe are still not. You know what? I'll write a name down for you. This is not dead. It may or may not happen, but there is a non-zero chance that we do something with that person, which would be
That'd be nice.
it'd be really neat, right? And like the conversations began, there was reception there, and I don't know if it's going to work because we're a little behind the 8 ball time-wise already, but it would be a neat thing if we could pull that off. It'd be something that I don't think anyone's ever done before in this market. So I would love to have that happen if it's still possible. All right, yeah, Lamar-O-Meter brought to you by Glory Days Grill. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports. 88% will be the read going into the weekend. Stan, we will get, I promise, we're going to talk all about the Orioles' pitching woes because they are plentiful at the moment. Now, you'd rather be winning 3 out of 4 games and dealing with pitching woes, but, it's the Athletics. You should be winning. You better be winning 3 out of 4 games.
Shouldn't have had to go into hand-to-hand combat to end up winning the series.
That no doubt about it. It felt more like you survived the series than that you really won the series. Yeah. It really felt more like a breathe deep, like exhale. You survived this weekend. The Orioles now move on to Chicago, where they're going to take on the White Sox this weekend for 3 games starting tonight. And anytime the Orioles take on the White Sox, it's a great excuse for us to welcome back in a friend of ours, someone who took Major League Baseball by storm, has carved out a great spot for himself. He is, of course, a Gilman alum, a Baltimore guy through and through. He is our friend Gavin Sheets, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Gavin, it's Glenn. Stan the Fan Charles is here with me today. It's always great to catch up with you, buddy. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Oh, anytime. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's always a good time.
Dude, it's always great to catch up with you. Hey, quickly, we do a silly Lamar bit every day where I guess what the likelihood is that he's going to be the quarterback this season. How much have you been living and dying all off season about Lamar Jackson news?
Oh my goodness, too much probably. I've been keeping a close eye. And I hope he's back. I hope this OBJ thing's gonna bring him back home and stay there and have a great team. But man, I don't know. I'm tired of watching about it. I just hope something comes out pretty soon.
You are feeling,
and all of us.
Right? You are feeling the exact same way that all of us are feeling. Do the guys do they know what a fan you are, and do they the day that we found out that Lamar demanded or requested a trade, did they come up to you and razz you about it in the clubhouse?
Oh man, they're all over me about it. Ben Intendi, our left fielder, he's a huge Cincinnati guy, so man, I get pounded about that all day long.
Well, at least we didn't lose a playoff game to them or anything like that. At least you didn't have to.
Exactly.
At least you didn't have to deal with that. I'm sure he
worries me out about it.
Has it happened yet where he has recreated Tyler Huntley diving from the 2-yard line? Has he come up to you and done that to you at all?
All the time. Luckily, I was at the game, Sunday night football game. We won with Justin Tucker's kick, so I show him that video all the time. But, man, he's got in the playoffs over here, so that's not good.
I love that, man. How are you, bro? Everything good? It's so funny because I just remember all the conversations we had with you as you were getting to this point in your career. Dude, you're an old veteran now, right? You're the guy that everybody else is looking up to, aren't you?
Yeah. I wouldn't go that far yet, but no, everything's good. We're scuffling a little bit right now. We're trying to get healthy and hopefully get things going. But it's very early in the season, and we'll just hopefully get things going here soon.
Gavin, nice to meet you. Stan the Fan. Been a fan of
yours. How are you doing?
Been a fan of yours for a while and was a big fan of your dad's. I got to preface this question by saying that in his day, I was a huge Tony La Russa fan. I thought he was one of the greatest managers I'd ever seen. The guy who managed the White Sox for a year and 3/4, to me, it didn't bear a resemblance to that Tony La Russa. What's the vibe? How different is the vibe now with Pedro Grifol there?
Yeah, it's definitely a different vibe. It's a new energy. And I love Tony to death. I had the utmost respect for him. He obviously was the guy that I started my career with, and he helped me turn into the player I am now. He took me under his wing and told me some stories about guys that he coached and what they did well, and so I've got the utmost respect for Tony. But I love Pedro and our new staff so far. I think it's a new energy that we have, and I think they bring a lot to the table.
Gavin Sheets is with us here in GCR. Gavin, I was wondering if you referenced some of the conversations you had with Tony. You obviously went through some struggles, right? You get to the major league level, it wasn't obviously at first it looked really good, and then there's some issues. Gunnar Henderson's going through a little bit of that right now early on in his career. What is it like to go through that feeling, Gavin? Like, how do you work through that? As somebody, you're hell-bent on sticking there, and you don't want to have it taken away from you. What is it like to kind of feel that pressure, and what do you have to do in order to be able to overcome some of that the way that you've had to go through it?
No doubt, it's tough because obviously you want to stay there and you want to develop and turn into a great player, but at the same time, you're fighting for a job and competing for a job every day. So, it's tough, and it's nice to go through early in your career. As much as it's difficult to go through it, but it is nice to go through it and get through it, and you learn a lot about yourself. You learn how to go through slumps, and you learn how to mentally stay in it every day. So I went through it really bad in April and May last year, and was able to scuffle out of it. And I haven't paid much attention to what Gunner's doing this year, but a guy like that with the ability and talent that he has already, he's just got to work through it. And once he does, he's going to be happy that he did.
Gavin, how has the lack of shifting changed your approach when you come up to bat, knowing that spot, you've got spots on your pull side that
Sure.
that are going to be available?
It's been great. It's nice coming up and not seeing, a guy in shallow right field and a third baseman at second base and the shortstop across. It's, it frees you up to, use the whole field. But I think the good thing is too is, I've seen second basemen make unbelievable plays this year that they weren't able to make last year because, everybody was in set position. So I think it's great for baseball. I think you're seeing, athleticism back in the middle of the infield, and you're seeing hits be hits, and you're seeing really, really good defensive plays, which I think is exactly what they wanted.
Gavin, I'll double up on that. Obviously, that wasn't the only change in baseball this season. Clearly, the pitch clock and you guys having to get ready quicker, and there was so much hullabaloo about it during the course of the spring, but I think baseball fans overwhelmingly have been very happy with the result of the product. I know Manny Machado wasn't so happy last week, but for the most part, what is the real impact, if anything, Ben? Do you think there's been a greater advantage for you guys or for pitchers with it? Like, what have you felt on a day-to-day basis with all the new rules?
Yeah, I don't think that there's been too much of an advantage on either side. I think it's just whoever just embraces it more. But I will say that I think that the pace of play and the baseball games are night and day from last year.
Yeah.
I think it's taken out the part of the game that wasn't baseball. It's taken out the standing around, and it's brought in just a complete 2.5 hours of action. And I think that's what the fans want. I think that's what the players want. So I see a lot of positives so far from it.
The one question is, do you feel at all, and I'm in agreement with how you described it, are any of the players on either side, the pitcher or the batter, are they feeling at all rushed? Do you see that, Gavin?
I think you can sometimes see it in really big at bats. I had a 12 or 13 pitch at bat the other night in the ninth inning, and it definitely was the first time where I felt like I was kind of in a rush. I think that's, you start bouncing balls off, and next thing you know, you look up and you got 12 seconds, and you got to be in the box by 4 seconds. And so it's, that was the first time I really felt sped up. And but I think those are the only times, big moments. It'll be interesting to see, once you get into the playoffs and, 8th and 9th inning, bases loaded, stuff like that. I don't know what the changes and stuff will be with that, or if we'll just be completely acclimated to it. But other than that, I haven't seen much of felt rushed.
Back to your squad for a second. How good was it to see Michael Kopech go out there against the Pirates and pitch such a good game?
That was awesome. Huge guy that we need. Obviously our fifth starter, and a guy that's got an unbelievable ability. Just with his fastball and his slider command, and getting out there and getting a good start was huge for us. So it's good to see him throwing the ball well again, and I think that he could be a huge piece of our rotation.
Just another minute or two here with Gavin Sheets, Baltimore zone, Orioles, White Sox playing out in Chicago this weekend. The important question with a new manager: have you guys adopted a home run celebration yet for this year? Do you have it? Are they waiting for you to hit your first before maybe they pull it out?
Yeah, we haven't yet. But I will say the Orioles are putting a lot of pressure on us to figure out what we're going to do. They're making their way around baseball right now with the Homer hose or whatever.
We're leaving it Homer hose. That's what it is. It's the Homer hose. We got to be careful.
Yeah, I've seen all the names it's got.
Yeah.
But I'm going to leave it the Homer hose. And it's fun to see stuff like that. I think that's that's the best part of clubhouses and celebrating with your teammates. And so we're definitely working on something that'll go along the lines of that.
I feel like you bring that up because a lot of people, I would think from the outside, older people maybe, and I'm not looking at Stan. I promise I'm not looking at you, would say this is corny, this is cheesy, but that type of stuff and what it does for camaraderie and what it does for
bonding. Yes,
bonding. Like it really, I feel like in a weird way, it actually does kind of matter, right?
Absolutely. I think the teams that bond the most are the teams that win the most, in my opinion. I think you'll see teams all across the league doing stuff like that, and that's what you have to do when you're out there grinding for 162 games and 180 days. You have to find ways to make the game fun and exciting with your teammates, and stuff like that. I love to see it, and I think it's not only great for the game, but it's great for clubhouse.
Gavin, Shohei Ohtani, have you faced him yet in a game?
Unfortunately, I have, yeah.
Tell me what's so special about him as a pitcher.
Oh, man. It's, I think if you take him as just a pitcher, he'd be a top 10 guy in the league. And,
right.
That's pretty incredible if you take him just as a hitter, he's, a top 10, top 20 guy in the league. So he throws the ball, he's 101, 102, with an unbelievable splitter and a slider that really doesn't look like anybody else's. So when you put all three of those things together, it's pretty devastating. And, it's pretty incredible watching him go out every night and do it and then come back the next day and hit a couple homers. So he's a pretty special player, to say the least.
Did you ever – I really don't know the answer to this question. Did you ever pitch, Gavin?
I did in high school, and I was going to a little bit in college, and then I just shut it down and became a hitter.
Yeah. And so what would it look like if you were called upon – tonight? Who was it that came in and got a strikeout the other night? There was somebody.
Hanser Alberto.
No, I was thinking the Yankees had the Yankees put somebody in who got a strikeout. Right? It was.
Was it Isaiah Kiner-Falefa?
Yes, it's exactly. Kiner-Falefa came in and I think recorded a strikeout. What would it look like if you, at some point this weekend, and I'm not wishing it upon you, although obviously it'd be good news for us, if you guys were down big, what would it look like if you got the call to come in and handle the eighth inning?
Man, I would just be mixing up speeds. I would throw one in there, probably about 45 to get the guy off, and then maybe do another one of those, and I'd let one rip, maybe touch 90, and then I'd probably go right back to 45.
You just got to fire one in, right? Like
I lived down in the Durham, Raleigh area for about 3.5 years, from 2000 to 2004, and somebody that I worked with down there had batted against Josh Hamilton.
Okay.
And Josh Hamilton he told me he'd never seen anything like that. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Dude,
yeah.
Must be nice
I think most guys were pitchers in high school as well. And, we always tell pitchers that we could go out and do
it. We could. It's not that hard. I could handle this. Hey,
exactly.
I'm working the Gilman Archbishop Spalding lacrosse game today. I'm calling that one. Did you ever was it? I've never asked you this. Would you ever look over and be like, hey, that looks like those guys are having fun. Maybe I'd give it a shot. Or was baseball always such a part of your blood that it was never a thought process for you?
It was always part of my blood. I never tried lacrosse. We always had at Gilman. We always had the baseball lacrosse rivalry. But some of my best friends were lacrosse players, and honestly, when I was there, we were so good that I don't think I would have seen the field anyway. So I hope their program's still going the right way. But no, we were loaded when I was there.
And then lastly, how much money does Drew Forrester pay you for you to keep up the idea that you actually like hanging around him?
I plead the fifth.
At Clean Sheets 24 on Twitter is how you follow him. Gavin, are you on Instagram as well?
I am. GSheets24 on Instagram.
Give him a follow there. Hey, dude, love you. Always appreciate you taking the time, man. You've always been great to us, and it's awesome to see you continue.
Always a pleasure.
Dude, I'm rooting for you. I also know how this works because you're facing the Orioles. You're probably going to hit 4 home runs this weekend. I just hope that they're 4 home runs and 3 losses, my man. Like, I just hope you understand.
I hope so.
Hey, bro.
I like the way you think.
Hey, man, appreciate you. We'll talk soon, all right?
Take care.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for having me on.
Gavin Sheets with us here this morning on GCR. Great dude. Just a 10.5, obviously. It's someone who, had the advantage of, being a little bit ahead of everybody in this part of the world because of his father.
I phrased my question to him diplomatically because there's nothing in the world that he gains by bashing Tony La Russa. He was absolutely a disaster.
Well, there's no question.
As a manager.
There's no question. And you could even kind of hear it in his I think you got what you were looking for in his answer, which is it's a different vibe. Yeah. But I do think that what he said, and I remember talking
I'm sure he gained a lot from
I remember Gavin telling me specifically that when he was going through it last year, where the appreciation he had for La Russa coming over and literally listing guys. Let me tell you about the guys that have been great players in this game. Let me literally tell you specifics. Gavin really did mention that to me at one point last year as being significant for him in how he handled his own struggles to start the season a year ago. And that's, I get it. Like, I get that it wasn't it was a bad idea to begin with.
Terrible.
It was a wretched idea, and it was, obviously it publicly looked really bad at times last year with him literally appearing to be asleep during games. It was one of the most public disasters you could ever possibly imagine as a managerial hire. But I do know that Gavin would tell you privately,
that
not
his
just
takeaway
that
was positive.
He was able to get some positive things from his time with Tony La Russa, and that did matter to him. All right, we need to talk about the Orioles pitching, unfortunately, so we will do that next, as it won't include Cole Irvin for a little while, at least not the next time through. We know that much for sure. Today's show brought to you by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. You can bet baseball on your phone for the first time ever here in Baltimore this season, so take advantage of great offers and incentives like $1,000 in a deposit bonus match plus a $50 free bet from DraftKings. But you got to go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers in order to claim that incentive. Stan the Fan Charles is here. It's a Friday edition of GCR. Hartford Community College in Bel Air, Maryland, along with the National Junior College Athletic Association's Region 20, will host the 2023 NJCAA Men's Lacrosse National Championship May 13th and 14th at Hartford Sports Complex, 401 Thomas Run Road in Bel Air. Semifinals are on Saturday, May 13th. The National Championship is Sunday, May 14th. Catch the action for $10 each day. Tickets will be available in advance or at the gate on game day. Qualifying teams will be announced.
What air conditioning company can save 50% of your energy cost and qualify you for up to $7,500 in rebates? A.J. Michaels. We do more, we do it better for less. In Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Orioles phenom Gunnar Henderson, breaking down how he was able to become the top prospect in baseball at such a young age, and what could be next in his first full MLB season. Also inside, we meet lacrosse players from the men's and women's college programs across the state, and Bo Smoka breaks down another year of wide receiver issues for the Ravens. PressBox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Check out PressBoxOnline.com every day to find daily winners and betting advice from Jeremy Kahn. And if you want some advice about life decisions that you probably shouldn't make, here's Glenn Clark.
Back in here on a Friday edition of GCR. Stan the Fan Charles is here. Yeah, that's one of my. I probably should have told that story on the air. It's a fairly good story. Those guys are on. I think everybody knows I'm friends with Zach from All Time Low. They were on Good Morning America the other day as they, continue to. It's amazing this deep into their career. I think one of them was at the ballpark the other day, hanging out with Ryan Mountcastle because Ryan Mountcastle famously uses one of their songs as his go-to karaoke song. So there's this famous video of it. But yeah, we were doing a show with Dennis Pitta at the Harriman House, and he had invited Joe Flacco out. So we already had a bit of a hullabaloo on our hands, and then we had told the guys from All Time Low they could come out. They tweeted that they were coming out, and all of a sudden it was panic. Reisterstown was not prepared for the mob that descended upon to the point where we had to go back to the guys from All Time Low and say, dude, you have to say you're not going to make it. You have to say. So they did. They went, they tweeted, and yet there were still people that hung around.
Did they go anyway? Or
oh, yeah, they came anyway. And it worked out because a few fans still stuck around thinking that maybe they were lying about.
That was for the food.
Correct. They were just there for the short ribs, which were excellent. Stan the Fan Charles is here in studio with us on a Friday edition of the program. Today's show is also brought to you by Birdland Sports, where if you are celebrating the Homer Hose, they've got a great selection of theme shirts that are on sale right now for $19.99 at birdlandsports.com, including the Slug Then Chug, the Homer Hose, the Script O's, but the O is a hose. It's pretty good. Yeah. Go find them right now, birdlandsports.com. Check them out there. Stan, the Orioles have a bit of a pitching problem. Cole Irvin was sent down after yesterday's game, which is...
And also after his press meeting with the media.
Oh, they had him do the...
Yeah, he did the stand-up and talked about how he'll be better next time. And yeah.
It's rough.
That's rough. It comes across as very harried,
So yesterday, Stan, it's funny. Yesterday I asked this question, and we framed the show around this topic. I said, are you closer to it's genuinely time to be panicked about the Orioles pitching, or it's still too early for any of that? No matter what it looks like, it's just drastically too early. And pleasantly surprised that, and we have a different kind of audience here, and we do things more pragmatically, so I guess I shouldn't be that surprised. But 70% of responses were, no, it's still drastically too early. And I think this speaks to what you're talking about, which is, look, Cole Irvin has been bad. There's no way around that. He's
whitewashing that.
But you would say that is not a decision that you make after 3 starts.
Well, it's interesting. I watch the games. I've scored every game, so I've watched them large chunks of every game, and I've watched Cole Irvin's 3 starts, and yeah, he hasn't been good. I say his stuff is softer than I remember being with Oakland. Because remember, I had interest in him because he was on my fantasy team 2 years ago.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. Don't have him now.
Oh, all right. Well, I can't blame you then.
I purposely didn't take Kyle Gibson, by the way.
God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes not all heroes wear capes.
Yeah, exactly. But to my eye, I said, okay, he's not pitching well. Luke Jackson, who I've grown to really respect his opinions.
Who's, of course, for those that don't know, he is our editor here at
managing
PressBox.
editor at PressBox.
By the way, he'll be writing the next cover. Well, it's not a story. We'll tell you about that a little bit later on in the show.
But he says to me in like the third inning, he goes, "This guy's really bad." You know, he goes, I'd almost rate him unpitchable. And I go, really? Unpitchable? So I looked at his first 2 starts last year were horrible for the Oakland A's, and then he went on a 6 or 7 start streak where his earned run average was 1.98.
Right.
You know, he's a bit of a streaky pitcher. I don't know that I'd be sending him out that fast, but again, I think this is less about his performance than it is about the club's needs
totality.
Right now.
So that's the thing that I was going to go to next, Stan, which is in a vacuum, I'd probably be inclined to agree with you. It hasn't been good, but this was a guy that you were invested in. Like
I gave up a real prospect.
Yeah,
for him.
I would be willing to maybe ride it out at least a little bit longer to see if it can't get corrected.
Right.
Before you go that route. But I think the second part of what you said is the thing that I started feeling last night, which is, but there's a totality problem here. And yesterday felt like maybe an acknowledgement of we're going to have to use a lot of guys in order to get through all of the innings that we have to get through this season. And this might not be personal, Cole Irvin. Like, it might not be that this is really about you as much as it's about
the staff.
How do we manipulate this for the next couple of weeks? Because we still need to get answers on Dean Kramer. Right now, you're comfortable with Kyle Gibson, and that's about it.
That's about it. Because Kyle Bradish, you don't know
exactly
how
right.
that's going to impact
you.
him.
You hope that when he
Remember
comes.
Brad Bergeson got hit on the same shin that.
Was it wow? It was the same shin.
It was a shin injury.
Okay.
He never came back to be what he had been.
Yeah.
Which some would say, well
right.
it was nothing.
But there was a season in there where he was effective. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. The other topic we talked about, and it's very interesting, Luke and I, we have some really good talks on Monday afternoon during the power rankings rundown. But was something he said to me about 10 days ago. He said, Mike and Brandon haven't gotten sort of the memo that Buck and Duquette had about always having a plan if somebody gets hit in the shin, you know, and this is sort of the first move they made since Luke was mentioning that. And to me, he again had an interesting vision of it. I think this is looking ahead toward the next 10 days rather than looking ahead to the whole season. I think they know that they'll get more out of Cole Irvin than he's given them. But I think somebody had to fall on the sword here, and I think Cole Irvin was the logical guy.
And it lines up, obviously, that Bradish can pitch today for Bowie, and then he can pitch next Wednesday because they have the off day on Monday. But, again, Cole Irvin might have to turn around and be your answer for if it doesn't improve, as I mentioned, for Dean Kramer. Like, you have to start putting him under the microscope at some point soon. The only of the young pitchers that's off to a really good start for Norfolk is Drew Rom, right? Like, Drew Rom's off to a great start, but it's a very small sample
size. How's DL doing? With the stretching out, you know.
The first start wasn't good.
His first 2 starts are horrible.
Yeah, so I don't
think he started the third time yet.
I don't think I don't think he has either. I'm double check. No, he has not made a third start yet.
He's pitched 6 innings in 2 starts.
Yeah,
but he couldn't help the club in relief now.
No, that wouldn't have been. Well,
they've
got Stan. What are you talking about?
Important.
They've got so much going for them in the bullpen right now. Why would they need help there? What are you talking about? Everything's been going so well. Look, I do think it's sort of recalibrating. I had a few people mention to me yesterday, well, this is something you can address at the deadline. I brought you up, and I said, look, Stan has said he's very confident that the Orioles will make a move for pitching at the deadline.
Again, if the deadline, the Orioles are in contention.
100%. And 2 things I brought up. One, I'm not as confident as you are.
Right.
I certainly hope.
Well, I didn't think when I predicted that they'd be in contention that the Rays would get off.
It would be 1,000-0, right? It would go 162-0. Although obviously they did get a little bit of bad news yesterday, despite the fact they won the game.
Jeffrey Springs.
What was the update after the game?
Ulnar neuritis.
Yeah, not great.
Well, supposedly one other team had, I forget, might have been, was it Kopech? Somebody had ulnar neuritis recently, and was after 10 days was able to come back.
All right. Well, that'd be good news for them, although not great news for everybody else in the division, obviously.
Bad news for Scott Garceau, who has Jeffrey Springs at $1.
Oh,
he's had him for.
Scott was doing the game yesterday, and they did a cut into him, and now I'm starting I feel like he was reading his own obituary.
I went over to him.
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, I see Springs got racked up today. He's taken out after 3 innings, giving up 1 run."
Yeah.
I said, "Is he available in the trade market?"
He was. They literally did a cut in to Scott talking about Springs getting injured, and now I want to go back and rewatch it to see if I can feel it in his voice, what he's going through. Stan, to the point, maybe that could be the answer, but the second part of what you said is relevant to what I said to everybody who responded that way yesterday. You got to paint for me how they're getting through all of this to get to July, because you're not making that trade in May. That's not happening.
Right.
How are they getting to July? To be fair, they already found Danny Colomb has been a revelation for this baseball team, has been wildly helpful beyond anything we could have ever expected. But that's one. I don't think you can count on it being other guys that you're picking up off of waivers that get you through in order to that point.
They've gotten sort of a what's it called, whiplash effect on this pitching staff. That the two real key cogs to the bullpen have been unavailable.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been squeezed that way to get stuff out of Logan Gillespie and Coulomb, as you mentioned. And Michael Baumann has actually pitched pretty well.
He's been helpful.
I've really liked him.
He's been helpful.
See, isn't that interesting how a converted starter sometimes
what are you
can
talking
be very
about,
effective
what are you trying to say?
But the other whiplash they've had, the part of the whiplash, is that these starters are not giving manager Brandon Hyde enough innings.
Well, that was on Monday of this week. Admittedly, I was frustrated about when he pulled Kyle Gibson. I get it. Yeah. There was a runner on base. I get that you don't want to invite a team back into a game, but particularly knowing Grayson was throwing after that, and knowing it's unlikely to expect significant innings from him, Kyle Gibson is here. His job is to
soak up innings,
to be the innings guy. It's a 4-1 game at that point. Even if he turns around and gives up a home run, you're not in a drastically different situation than you were to begin with. That was I don't. There haven't been a lot of things I've criticized. When people freak out about Brandon Hyde's lineups, I don't freak out about it. I'm not that guy. But that was the first time this season on Monday night where I said, "This is too." No, you gotta. He's here to be this guy. That when he's only given up 1 run and you're in the 6th inning and there's a runner on base, you don't immediately pull him. He's got to help you out a little bit more than that because there's no one else.
I thought he was capable that night of going further.
Yeah.
No question about it. I think Brandon, frankly, and I don't say this often, and he's never had reason to manage against another team so far in his tenure.
Mm-hmm.
I think this start that the Rays are off to, and granted, they played the 3 worst teams in my power rankings.
Correct.
9 games, and they won all 9.
Mm-hmm.
They played the 14th ranked team in my power rankings, the Red Sox, and they won all 4. So they're 13-0. I think he's managing a little bit with some pressure on him not to fall too far behind the other 2 teams. In other words, most people thought that the 2 best teams were going to be Toronto and New York.
Yep.
And if we're to contend, it was kind of going to be for that second wild card spot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with Tampa off to such an incredible start, I'll bet if there was a Tampa Ray-O-Meter, that their percentage chance to make the playoffs has gone up
it's through the roof.
Yeah,
No question.
I think Brandon's managing a little scary.
Putting a little bit more emphasis on every game than some of the big picture stuff.
Until what he thinks is going to happen is there'll be a regression by the Rays that suddenly they'll lose 5 out of their next 10 and be 18-5, which is drastically different than 22-1.
Let me go back to the question that I asked yesterday, and I'm going to change the word because panic threw people off a lot. You shouldn't be panicking about anything. are you closer to genuinely concerned that this is going to be a season-long issue, or are you still at a place where you say, get back to me in 2 weeks? Like, we're talking about 2 weeks worth of baseball at this point.
Right.
I can't commit to the idea that this is going to be a problem for a long time.
Yeah, I think that it's that you just stated
the latter.
How I would say. I don't think they're like gigantically worried that Bradish and Kramer are going to be what they've been. I think they're reasonably confident that Grayson Rodriguez is going to carve out a spot here.
Okay. Okay.
So I think they got to be through the roof on what Kyle's done so far.
Oh, I think Kyle Gibson's been as advertised. Again, the only disappointing part being that I think you could have gotten more from Kyle Gibson. But for the most part,
I think he's much more than advertised. This is a guy who, with the Phillies last year, had a +5 ERA.
Right.
So I think he's really. I had a feeling that what I loved about Matt Harvey and his time with the Orioles was how Holt was really working him like a jockey on top of a horse. I think Holt and Gibson are going to be like Mungan and Lamar Jackson.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Mungan. Right.
Yeah. I think there's something going on that Holt. I think Gibson came to the right place at the right time in his career.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's
looking like 2021 Kyle Gibson.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the point being, a lot of people just said, well, all he needs to be is Jordan Lyles. And if your point is he's been better than Jordan Lyles, I'll absolutely be on board with that. Today's show brought to you by your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. When we come back in, we're going to meet the newest incoming Terp, though there could be another one. Maybe. We'll find out that later this weekend. Chance Stevens is going to check in with us. Also in this hour, I want to talk about how we react to the Dan Snyder news. I have an interesting question to ask about that still to come this hour. It is a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. Stan the Fan Charleston studio. Are you a diehard O's fan looking for the perfect way to show your team spirit? Look no further than Birdland Sports. Birdland Sports is a small business run by fans for fans. They offer a wide variety of unofficial O's merchandise, from the Birds Are Coming tees to player cartoon shirts and more. And the best part? Their prices are more affordable than the big guys. So head to birdlandsports.com and grab your gear today. Show your support for the Birds with Birdland Sports.
The latest edition of PressBox is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Orioles phenom Gunnar Henderson, breaking down how he was able to become the top prospect in baseball at such a young age, and what could be next in his first full MLB season. Also inside, we meet lacrosse players from the men's and women's college programs across the state, and Bo Smoka breaks down another year of wide receiver issues for the Ravens. PressBox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition, as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Hartford Community College in Bel Air, Maryland, along with the National Junior College Athletic Association's Region 20, will host the 2023 NJCAA Men's Lacrosse National Championship May 13th and 14th at Hartford Sports Complex, 401 Thomas Run Road in Bel Air. Semifinals are on Saturday, May 13th. The National Championship is Sunday, May 14th. Catch the action for $10 each day. Tickets will be available in advance or at the gate on game day. Qualifying teams will be announced.
What air conditioning company can save 50% of your energy cost and qualify you for up to $7,500 in rebates? A.J. Michaels. We do more, we do it better for less. In Baltimore and Annapolis, ajmichaels.com.
If you miss anything on the show, don't forget that you can watch full episodes at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, and you can download podcasts on Apple, iTunes, Amazon, and Grindr. Wait, did I say Grindr? I don't think that you would find it on Grindr. Not that I know it's on Grindr or anything, I swear. On second thought, you know what? I don't care what you think. Here's Glenn.
All right, back in here on GCR as we continue on a Friday edition of the program. Stay on the
By
Fan.
the way, that read in that commercial, who was that actor?
That was the actor doing that.
I've got to get him in touch with Josh.
Yeah, right. He's killing it, Paul Valley. See if we can't find him some work. Stan, you have, before we get to our next guest, you had another busy week of shows, I know.
Brett Adams was on last night, and last Monday, Lee Lowenfish, who's written a book on baseball's endangered species, about the craft of scouting. And Monday night, we'll have Mike Boddicker on.
Excellent.
Frank Remish from the new arena. What's in the bank?
CFG Bank Arena.
CFG, I was right.
You didn't get to go out to any of the events last weekend.
Still not been in.
It'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
Both John Colson and I went to Earth, Wind, and Fire, and then I found out where John Colson's seats were, and I said, that's interesting. Mine weren't quite as good.
Yeah, I didn't get the invite
weird,
at all.
Weird how that worked out. Weird how that worked out. It's amazing. It's an incredible facility. Again, Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Click on the videos tab. YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video to find all of Stan's shows. Joining us now, this young man is going to come to College Park to play for the Terps as he has decided to transfer in after spending his first season at Loyola Marymount. He is a sniper, was a heck of a three-point shooter, and we know Maryland could use that. He's Chance Stevens, and he's with us now here on GCR. Chance, it's Glenn and Stan in Baltimore. It's great to catch up with you, man. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes for us.
Hey, Glenn, how you doing?
Everything is
Doing good.
Everything's good, man. Congratulations on being a Terp. Can you take me through? I've heard a little bit. I think you might have some family connections, but you know, on paper, I see a kid who's playing at Loyola Marymount. He's from Riverside, California. I'm like, wow, what would the connection be for you to end up at Maryland? Can you take us through how this all came about?
Well, basically, I've been to the East Coast a couple times. One to Detroit with my mom because she's from Detroit, and my dad's from D.C.
Okay.
So I've been to D.C. a couple times as well too. So I don't know. Every time I go down there, it's just I always have a whole lot of fun just seeing family, and you know they always come through. They always make the stay a lot better. So every time I come back to California, I just miss it, you know. And I guess while I was playing basketball here, my dad was always wanted me to play in the East Coast area, specifically D.C. So I don't know. I just always been trying to get out there. And when I went in the transfer portal, Maryland had called, and obviously, you know, I was excited for that. So they gave me the opportunity to have my visit down there. I went on the visit. I loved everything actually, and you know, it's like a dream come true to me. So it was no question, and I just ended up committing there.
Chance, what part did David Cox play in this? I know you had committed to him when he was the head coach at Rhode Island, and he's one of Kevin's assistants. Obviously, he's a player that was a coach that was familiar with your game. How important was it to have that comfort level?
Man, to have that type of relationship and comfort level with the coach, I think is very important, especially in trying to get to the next level, because coaching staff have a lot to do with how a player will improve and grow in the process during their college career. So I think, you know, just for everyone, just to find a great coaching staff that they have a really good relationship with. And I found that in Cox because he recruited me in 8th grade.
Wow.
He offered me in 8th grade.
Wow.
To Rhode Island, yeah. So we've been talking for a very long time.
Were you the sniper in 8th grade? Were you the sniper back then?
I was a sniper back then. So.
Chance Stevens with us. Chance, where did that come from? Dude, we were talking about you before you came on the show, and I said, man, I imagine that Chance is probably going to have the chance to, no pun intended, develop into an even more all-around player. But even if all you brought to this team right now is three-point shooting, Maryland could use some of that. Where did it come from, the sniper? Where did that shot for you? Like, how did it come about that was something that you became such a specialist for?
Well, the shot came from my dad, really. Me and him working out at the gym almost every day, starting around like 8, just shooting jump shots, really just from everywhere on the floor, just shooting jump shots every day, consistently coming in. And eventually, it just became natural, as all things do when you work on it every day. So, and the name, actually, one of my family members came to the gym with me and my dad to go shoot, and after I got done working out, I was like making every shot. So after we got done working out, he was like, you should change the name to Chance the Sniper on Instagram. I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? So I just did it just as a joke, but I just never changed it after that. And
it's stuck.
People just stuck.
There's about 1 billion worse nicknames for people to stick with. Sniper's pretty good, man. Like, I would stick with that one.
Yeah,
if I were
I
you.
appreciate that.
Chance Stevens is with us. He's coming to the University of Maryland to play next season. Would it be fair to say that it also had to matter to you? Like, as much as your connection with David Cox matters, as much as you wanted to be back in this region, but the fact that Maryland had the season that they had a year ago, and that Kevin Willard kind of proved, hey, I was able to do this before I had a recruiting class, before any of that. How much did that play a factor for you in wanting to jump up a level and finding a place where you look at and say, is it fair to say that you look at Maryland now and say, I believe we can compete to go to a Final Four in the next couple of years?
Oh, yeah. And I think it was always my dream to play at a bigger school, too. So that was definitely a huge factor in me going there as well. So I think, they're in the Big Ten. That's one of the best conferences out of all the conferences. So, you can't get no better than that. Yeah, I think it's going to be really special, especially when we get all the guys together and we start working. So,
Chance,
I think it's going to be really good.
Chance, I haven't fully gotten to talk to many players since this whole name, image, likeness thing has come about. When the transfer portal's happening, is there now in this day and age money discussed?
Like a bidding war.
Right. Do you sort of measure up what you can get at different places in addition to the comfortability with David Cox playing in home? Did it still have to make sense for you?
Yeah, it did. I don't think for me it was too focused on money, though. I think it was really just for me, is it the right situation, Is it going to be the right fit for me?
As a player, Chance, I mentioned Maryland can use, for everything that went well a year ago, three-point shooting was an issue.
There were certain games where they couldn't hit the left side
100%.
of the barn. Yeah.
I have no doubt that that's something you want to bring, but how much do you feel like maybe we didn't get to see everything that you could be bringing to the table over the coming years at Maryland beyond? The thing that jumps out to all of us is the three-point shooting, but what else could be coming as you continue to develop over the next couple of years?
I think definitely my defense and my playmaking ability, just being able to get, everyone around me better and open looks and make the game easier on them. So that's what I think I'll be able to show that I wasn't able to show this year. So
have you ever attended games at the Xfinity Center?
I have never, but
never been there.
my papa has. He came to some games last year.
And so you're aware that it can be pretty freaking electric inside that building, man. Like
when the sniper goes off.
Yeah, right. Dude, that Purdue game last year,
Yeah.
it was about as raucous.
I'm definitely aware.
Yeah, man, that can be really exciting. Chance, with that, do you have any relationships with any of the guys on the team? Like, it's basketball's such a kind of a small world. Like, you guys run into each other, AAU stuff like that. Did you know any of these guys? Did you maybe have a conversation with any of the guys on the team?
I actually haven't. I don't know any of them before. Before going there, but I got to meet Jahari because he was on my visit and he went to dinner with us. So he was the only one I got to meet. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to meet the rest of the guys. So
what'd you have?
I'll be looking forward to meeting them though.
Yeah, right.
What'd you have to eat?
Ooh. I definitely got some seafood.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's
a good reason to be here.
Your life is going to improve now in that way. Being out on this side of the country, that's the way that it goes.
Yeah, but they got some blue crabs. That's what I got.
Yeah, you're not getting those in Riverside. It just ain't happening.
No. You're not touching those down here.
No doubt. It's just not going to work that way.
We got to get you out for some steamed crabs.
Yep, steamed crabs. Get you some crab cakes. We'll make sure that happens.
Yeah, that's exactly what I got. The crab cakes are fire.
Chance,
I love those.
I said something, but I'm wondering if you could, it would be better to hear those expectations from you than from me, right? Like, are you really coming to Maryland now believing that you're at a school that is capable of winning a national championship?
Yes, I definitely believe that next year or coming to this school that we can definitely win the national championship.
That's what we're really excited. Like Stan and I will tell you, this season there was some apathy at Maryland for a little while, and what those guys did this year. And I know you get a lot of those guys are back. Juju's back, Jameer Young's back, and Dante Scott's back.
Some of the magic.
Yeah, there's a real opportunity for something special next year, and we're really looking forward to seeing that from you guys. Chance, what can we plug for you, social media wise? Where can Maryland fans be giving you a follow?
Instagram at Chance_the_sniper.
That's the best place.
That's about it, really.
Well, you've got a website, right, with some gear?
Oh yeah. ChanceTheSniper.com.
Cool.
Go there. I got some hoodies, T-shirts on there. So
I got one last question. I'm sorry to have interrupted you. Go ahead, finish up what you were saying, Chance.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I apologize for jumping in. Let me just ask you this last question. Go ahead. How aware are you of the attempt to get Hunter Dickinson to come over there? Are you aware of that?
Can we get you to start sending some DMs or something?
I'm definitely aware of that.
All right.
Of course I want him over there. If he get him, it's definitely a game changer.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, the roster you guys would have next year would be overwhelming. Could be talking about
that's nice.
Preseason top 10 type of team.
Not many teams can have the sniper and the game changer on the same squad.
Hey, Chance, it's great to meet you, man. We can't wait to see you out here in College Park. Congratulations on making this move. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chance.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
No doubt. Chance Stevens, the sniper, joining us this morning here on GCR as he gets ready to come to the University of Maryland. As Stan points out, Hunter Dickinson indeed is scheduled to make a visit this weekend at the University of Maryland. He's also visiting Georgetown while he's here, and the belief is basically everybody is still in on Hunter Dickinson.
And supposedly he's going to Duke.
Yeah, Villanova's in, Kansas is basically everyone is in.
The Yankees are in, right?
I'm pretty sure the Yankees,
the Dodgers.
We know they have the Padres almost certainly are in. We know that. They'll spend whatever they need to spend.
And Bisciotti, because it might be a way to get
Lamar Jackson to 100% be more bought in.
Square things with him.
Right, square things with Lamar Jackson by getting Hunter Dickinson. Although, Bisciotti likes Maryland basketball too. Maybe he could get involved to help out. I'm still in a weird place with that part of this, Stan. Like, I got to be honest with you. I'm not saying – I don't think it's a bad thing to have Hunter Dickinson by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. But you do have to start sort of mapping out what the roster looks like and how that pushes everyone down. And I don't really love Juju Reese stepping out and trying to be a stretch 4 like that. I just don't think that's his game. I get he's not a true 5, but in college basketball anymore, there aren't really true 5s. And so I do think that for the style of play that's going to win in the tournament, Juju Reese is better playing. I almost called him Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju Reese is better playing the 5 against those teams. In the Big Ten, it's a different animal because you got to go up against the Zach Edey's of the world.
I'll let Kevin Willard work the X's and O's.
I'd love
to have both of them on the same squad.
I get it. But then Dante Scott's getting pushed back to being a 3, and he certainly was not consistent enough with his shot a year ago for me to be comfortable.
I think you also, though, become a team that's really capable of rebounding really well.
No, there's no doubt about that.
Scott, Reese, and Dickinson.
Yeah.
And also, it's not like all of a sudden Reese is going to come out next year and never be in foul trouble.
No question. Right.
So having 3 guys rotating those minutes, it gives you an incredible amount of versatility.
I wish this is the best way I can say it, Stan. I wish there was a different player that could help address that unique problem.
Right.
That didn't force everyone to be pushed down in the process. Now, the fact that we don't know that there is that player available, and this is the guy that is.
Yeah.
And there's a reason to think he might want to come to Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
I probably would line up with you and say, yes, if you're asking me simply in a vacuum, yes or no, on Hunter Dickinson, I'm inclined to say yes because of it. I just don't know that it's as perfect a fit as you might want to believe that it is, given what it does.
I think overall it is, and I understand what you're talking about, the problems on the court, with minutes and what it does to positions. Any coach worth his salt would love to have that problem of having
I don't
Reese,
disagree with that.
Scott, and this player. I just think for the short-term jolt it would give this program right now to again be back where a top guy wants to come there and what he could do for the team, it's like taking you from hell to nirvana in 2 seasons. That's pretty amazing.
This Maryland roster, with their income, by the way, we haven't even talked about, they're bringing in Deshaun Harris-Smith. They're bringing in Jamie Kaiser, who are both highly regarded prospects. John Lamothe from Baltimore, who's expected to be an impact player of sorts. You add Hunter Dickinson to that, you legitimately are talking about a team that's going to be a top 10 preseason. They will be in the preseason top 10. Now, that doesn't – once upon a time, of course, Diamond Stone's team was a preseason top 10 team, and they had nothing to show for it.
That team had a different coach.
Yes, that is also true. That is also true, and it turns out Diamond Stone was not the guy that we thought he was, right? Like, there's a lot that goes into that. But the point sort of being, it's not that relevant that you're a preseason top 10 team, but that would be the expectation that you'd be faced with. Paul from Orlando did point out that Hunter Dickinson has also said he's taking an official to Kansas, and yes, I think if your thought is maybe that Maryland can get Hunter Dickinson to just commit while he's there this weekend, I think that's very unlikely. I think there's still going to be a bidding war to come for Hunter Dickinson. I still think there's going to be what we were joking about with Chance Stevens. I think it's going to be very real for Hunter Dickinson.
Yeah, no question about it. But one other factor is Coach Willard has now brought in Mike Jones.
Yep, the DeMatha connection.
Yep, coach
100%.
At DeMatha.
Yep.
So you got Cox bringing in.
And they still have to fill their third assistant spot because Grant Billmeyer left for NJI to take the head coaching job at NJIT. So we'll see how they go about filling that. I hear
Todd Monken is
Todd
up
Monken.
for that.
Well, I don't know that would be ideal for everybody if it ends up being Todd Monken. I don't know that's the case, and I could make an argument that might be a role that you try to put a Baltimore connection in, but they've got a Baltimore guy on the staff. I don't remember what Tavon Sadler's role is on the he's got some sort of director of
operations.
What is Kenya Matalolo's title at UCL? Director of leadership.
Director of leadership. Yeah.
Which is I even when we asked him, I was like, Ken, what is a director of leadership? I still didn't feel like I understood what the answer was.
I do whatever Chip needs.
Right. Like, I think Tavon Sadler might have that kind of role with Maryland basketball. So it's not like they don't have a Baltimore.
Right.
Director of player personnel.
All right.
So it's kind of a real role,
But I don't even know what that. I really don't know what that is. It used to be director of ops was a thing. Now there's director of player personnel. But the point being, they do have a Baltimore connection on
the
staff, and that does matter for them.
Yeah.
So they might say it's not as important to us that we specifically have an assistant coach have that Baltimore connection, because we have someone within the program that does have the Baltimore connection, and Tavon Sadler does have a good connection to this area and is respected and is appreciated. I have no doubt, however, that if you called up Bino Ranson and said, "Hey, buddy, you want to come back from DePaul?" Bino would be on the first flight back. Yeah. He would say, "Please."
And he's doing a great job, too.
And he's beloved in Baltimore, is a beloved figure within this community. And also, by the way, he was really credited with helping to land Diamond Stone once upon a time. Yeah. So he wasn't just a Baltimore guy. He proved that he had chops beyond Baltimore in recruiting. And I'm telling you, walk around this town one day with Bino Ranson and see just how respected the man is, just how appreciated he is within this community. He's sort of like a Pied Piper figure. All right. Today's show is also brought to you by the print issue of PressBox. Now, as I pointed out, Stan, we've got a new print issue coming. This is the final weekend for you to go get this print issue of PressBox with Gunnar Henderson on the cover. Do you want to go ahead and talk about the new issue that's going to hit stands next Wednesday?
Yeah, I don't think it's anything. We came up with, coming out every other month. We try and stagger the topics that we put on the cover, but there didn't seem to be anything really that compelling.
Can we just be honest about it? Can we pull the curtain back? The Lamar Jackson situation has made it very difficult for us to commit to anything as a 2-month cover story related to the Ravens.
Yeah.
Just being as frank as we can about it.
That's a good way to put it.
It's very difficult when everything centers around this one thing that is such a giant unknown to do any kind of big picture storytelling related to the Ravens at the moment.
Yeah.
So
now, clearly, if we were a weekly like we were
100%.
17 years ago, we would have probably had an Odell Beckham
no question
for next week.
No question.
We would have responded that way. One of the things we thought was an interesting topic for this season was sort of, without diving deeply into one story, the Orioles have so many prospects that are going to be playing throughout the state of Maryland this summer, in Delmarva and Aberdeen and Bowie, that we came out with the pipeline primer, the concept of a primer for who you're going to see at what places, a little bit of their scheduling, what tickets are like, and all that, names of the ballparks.
A couple of things that are interesting to me about it, Stan. One, by the way, the cover will feature a illustration of Jackson Holliday, of course, was
done by the great John Panisi.
But it's an entire section about, and to me the big part, Stan, is I think when Adley and Gunnar got here and Grayson's now gotten here, there is a feeling of, okay, well those were the guys, right? And I think what this conveys is it's still a very deep system. Yeah. And I keep trying to talk about, like, we still are looking at the team that you think might one day compete for a World Series title. There might still only be a few of the pieces that are here. Like, that's the reality of it. There's still not just Jackson Holliday, a literal #1 overall pick, but y'all been paying attention to Heston Kjerstad recently, Colton Cowser. We just talked to Kobe Mayo yesterday on the program. The international signings, a few of those are featured within this section.
What's the catcher, Sammy Bassett?
Yeah, it's going to drive me nuts because I know. I didn't want to say the name because I had forgotten to. I'll tell you in 2 seconds. But that's what this is kind of all about, is that despite these guys,
Cade Povich,
sure,
they picked up in a trade.
Despite these guys all getting here, there's still a lot. There's still a lot still to come within that pipeline for the Baltimore Orioles.
Dylan Beavers.
Yep, and as much as you're going to want to go out to Orioles games this summer, as Stan pointed out, if you're headed down to the beach, you might still want to be stopping by. Right now, Jackson Holliday is at Salisbury, or at Delmarva in Salisbury. Might be worth trying to figure out a way to plan your weekend around. Can I sneak through Salisbury on the way in or on the way out to go see Jackson Holliday play baseball? So it's, there's a little bit of a travel kind of part to this. All of it is mixed in, but it's a significant section that was curated by Luke Jackson as I guess is a better way of saying
Yeah.
it. And it's going to be available next Wednesday, this new print issue of PressBox. We're looking forward to that. You'll be able to get it for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms at these hundreds of locations around town. Other stuff in there, Bo Smolka dives into last year's draft class and what progress would look like for those players
It'll
in
be
year.
a very big key for this team this season.
No question about that. And Todd Karpovich profiles Kyle Gibson, who we were talking about a minute ago. I look over the sports history at the Baltimore Arena, as we now have a new building, and try to imagine what sports could still kind of play a role moving forward at the building, because it's not going to be the same. The number of things that I didn't know about in the sports history of the building is I did my research this month, where I said to Stan, I did not know that Jimmy Connors played on a world team tennis team at the building. Before me, I had no idea that was ever a thing. So I dove into that a little bit as well in this print issue.
I wrote about the mistake that the Orioles are making again on DL Hall.
It's been a topic.
They're going to stretch him out, though.
Yep.
You know,
they're getting him
be
stretched
a great
out, man.
starter.
They're
He's
getting him stretched
pitched
out.
twice and thrown 6 innings so far. How's that stretching out working?
All right. You can get that print issue starting on Wednesday. It will be available. Hey, when we come back in, Stan, I want to ask you. I think that you, like I, more than anything, have
I like you.
I mean, some days. Some days. I think that similar to you have distaste for the Washington football franchise.
You could say that.
I think that you and I are alike in that way.
At least the man who owns.
Well, that overwhelmingly, but in general, more inclined to root against them than anything else.
I was born in Washington, D.C., so when the Redskins got good under George Allen, I love the Redskins.
Interesting.
And then
I
with
did not.
Joe Gibbs, I love the Redskins.
I did not know that part of your history.
Yeah.
I would like to talk about the Baltimore perspective of what today is a day of celebration in our nation's capital. That region is.
They got to be dancing in the streets.
Losing its minds. And I have had conflicted feelings of.
And it's not about Chance Stevens coming
I don't
to
think
College
so.
Park.
I don't think that's the reason. Although they probably like that too.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of different emotions that I have felt in relation to that. And I want to kind of talk through some of those things when we come back in. Today's show is also brought to you by A.J. Michaels. Expert and award-winning A.J. Michaels Heating, AC, Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is coming up fast. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. Stand the fans here. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Baseball season is finally here, and what better way to celebrate than with some fresh gear from Birdland Sports. As a small business run by O's fans, Birdland Sports offers a great selection of unofficial merchandise, including unique designs like Birds Are Coming tees, player cartoon shirts, and championship prediction designs. And the best part, their prices are more affordable than the big guys. Get high-quality gear without breaking the bank. So whether you're heading to the ballpark or watching from home, show your love for the birds with Birdland Sports. Visit birdlandsports.com today to browse their collection and gear up for the season. Let's go O's.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Another Orioles season is in the books, and the bat-around was there every step of the way as the Birds posted their first winning season in 6 years. And after promoting 2 #1 overall prospects in Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, Mike Elias has said it's liftoff from here. Hi, I'm Paul Valley, and along with my co-host Zach Goodman, we'll be here every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon all off-season, discussing every signing, trade, and waiver claim as we navigate the cold winter months that lead to spring training. You can watch us at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline and facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or listen live at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. And if you miss a show, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. So tune into the Bat-Around with Paul Valley and Zach Goodman every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon right here at PressBox Sports.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
If you need more of Glenn, you can also hear him every Sunday with Rita on 105.7 The Fan. But also, if you need more of Glenn, what's wrong with you?
Back in here on GCR, Stan the Fan. I promise he's here. You don't see him right now, but I promise he's here.
Didn't he say he's
I think he said he would rather go in and watch Ninja Turtles with my sons.
Well, to be fair, I mean.
Yeah, Griffin was like, wait, was that an option? I was not aware that watching Ninja Turtles was something I was allowed to do today. The boys are I told them they couldn't watch any more Ninja Turtles because I needed my phone back. By the way, as a parent, never make the mistake I made today. I brought my iPad with me so the boys could watch my iPad while they were here, but I forgot the charger.
Oh.
Nightmare scenario. So I had to give them my phone instead. Now, luckily, my sons handled that quite well, and they were sitting there sharing my phone to watch their
mature
Ninja
young
Turtles.
men.
I thought that's what you were doing, is just going in to watch Ninja Turtles with the boys. I thought that was
I did grab
yeah.
that. Do they need to use my phone
No,
too?
they're fine.
They're
They're playing
They seem
games now.
They're incredible.
They're
together.
fine. They're totally. They mostly like each other. Every now and then when we start, they'll start wrestling, then they don't for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, they like each other, and they enjoy being around each other. And there's not like he's in kindergarten, I don't want to hang out with him. They mostly enjoy each other's company, which I do appreciate as a parent. That means something.
They probably bonded against you and your wife.
And you know what? That's fine.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. I'd rather they get along with each other, frankly. I'd rather that be the case at this point. Stan, I led into it before the break. Obviously, and they're still dotting I's, crossing T's, and we still don't know exactly how it's all going to play out. But yesterday was the day it kind of became clear this is not going to drag on further.
Right.
Dan Snyder's tenure as owner in Washington will be ending in the coming weeks. He will not still be in charge when the season begins. Down there, it's bat-ass. My friends at 106.7 The Fan in D.C. literally booked live broadcast to go throw a block party today because it's so exciting. I think for the good of football, everyone knows Dan Snyder is excrement, and
he's a wretched human being.
Correct. And he has no place as an owner in the National Football League. So I think generically it's a good day for football as well. There is a weird feeling that I have, though, and I've said this before. The one thing I could count on with Dan Snyder being the owner of the Washington football team, it was one less team you had to worry about being competitive. Mm-hmm. There was kind of something nice about knowing, well, you're really only competing against 30 other teams because you sure as F aren't competing against Washington because they'll never get it right as long as he's the guy. Now, there's no direct. It's not like you're in the same division and, it's
I get it.
You don't play each other all that frequently, so it's not a rivalry by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just a reminder that somebody else might get it right in the future, and somebody else might, this team, led by Josh Harris, who, by all accounts, has done a nice job leading the 76ers, and the Devils is the other team that he owns, right? Magic Johnson, who's obviously a very astute business person, and I do not know, is it Mitchell Rails, I believe, is the other partner that's involved with this, that John Colson apparently has he was in radio for a long time in D.C., owned 980 years ago. So, they might figure out how to dig this disaster back to a place of, it's hard for people of a certain age to realize that once upon a time,
the Redskins were one of the best franchises in
a model franchise in American pro sports, a franchise that you would strive to match the success and beloved nature within that market, which is a very difficult market because of its transient nature, in order to get people to commit to. Until Alex Ovechkin came along, the Capitals were zip, were nothing. the Washington Bullets Wizards have never been anything. They've never had a blip on the radar. The Nationals, it seemed for a minute like they were a thing, but you've kind of been reminded immediately afterwards that that's mild. There's a mild appreciation. I think there's a baseball appreciation in D.C., and because of that, the Nationals do well enough, but for the most part, it's tepid. There is a small part of me that says I kind of like the comfort of knowing it was always going to be a disaster as long as Dan Snyder was there.
Yeah, I totally get how you feel. I think this is a period, not a day of, because the sale hasn't officially gone through, but this is a period of great excitement and enthusiasm. It's pretty bad when you do not have any faith in your ownership that they'll get something right, and that they seem to be a blight on your, I mean,
no matter what.
I criticize Peter Angelos for a lot of things, but never, not even, it's like a thimble compared to a full-fledged bucket of crap.
I think Peter Angelos has been a poor baseball owner.
Yeah.
But he's not been a monstrous human being the way that Dan Snyder has been an unquestionable monstrous human being. It's one thing that I've always reminded Orioles fans, hey, as much as we don't like Peter Angelos, and look, I get it for good reason, there are people even within this community that would say, yes, but because of his philanthropy, we think extraordinarily highly of Peter Angelos. Dan Snyder, while yes, I'm sure he has given lots of money too, because it's helpful for tax reasons to give money. There's not a soul, there's not a person that would tell you, but we appreciate and respect Dan Snyder. That person doesn't exist because the only people that did it were the people that he was paying to do that, and inevitably he always ends up blowing those people out too, or they get sick of it at some point and they move on and they do something else. He's garbage. It's one of the most spectacular failures of a boy who would be king, right? And look, Dan Snyder has made plenty of money, and
he's going to make a lot of money.
No doubt, he's about to have $6 billion, and that's must be nice. It's not, but as far as someone who wanted this, the story of Dan Snyder was how badly he wanted to be the owner of the Washington Redskins. He badly wanted that. And there is nothing to show for it. There's nothing redeemable.
There's no legacy.
Zero.
Yeah, zero.
He is one of the most despised figures in the history of American professional sports. It is an atrocity what his...
Tom Cruise likes him, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, but because they're business partners, right? Like, it's one of those, you're kind of getting paid to. Like, outside of people that are getting paid to be his partner, there's no one that would have any positive word to say about Dan Snyder. It is... I don't know that there's a comparable to it. Again, over the years, we would make comparisons between, Peter Angelos and Dan Snyder, but at some point, it became clear Dan Snyder wasn't just a bad football owner. Like, at some point...
He was going to win that battle, battle to bad.
Right.
Bad human
that's the one thing he's won in his life, is that he won that battle between he and Peter Angelos. Yeah. Do you think that new ownership can revive... This is always the question, right? Can that be revived, or was it killed to such an extent during the Dan Snyder era that even new ownership and even doing the right things might not be able to fully revive what once was in Washington?
I think what will fully revive that will be at some point in the when I say not too distant, I'd say 8 to 12 years. I think the Commanders will play in a new facility.
Yes.
Which will greatly help erase the blight of the Dan Snyder era, even though it was Jack Kent Cooke who built that building.
Do you think it has to be at the RFK site in order for that to...
I don't know exactly. I don't know enough about the geography down there, but it's just you can't have a place that's not a destination point.
Okay.
I mean, the experience of going to Commanders games is
it's
dreadful.
Hell.
It's a dreadful experience.
Hell.
Nobody looks forward to it.
Pure hell. I think in order to try to create what once was, it almost has to be at the RFK site, right? In order to replicate that part of it, I think it almost has to be at the RFK site. But to your point, yes, just getting out of that absolute pig F of a situation for people to go to games where they're literally being sprayed with excrement because that's how bad it is there, will go a long way, at least into giving hope that it could be done. For what it's worth, as much as maybe people were confused when they decided they're going to put the baseball stadium on the Anacostia in an area that at the time, I think anybody who when it was nothing.
It was like in Inner Harbor in Baltimore.
Like
when
before, Governor Schaefer, or Mayor Schaefer went to the lengths that he went to in order to try to upgrade it. Like now, you go down to that area and it's electric. It's alive. They have created something. The soccer stadium's now there too. They've opened up tons of restaurants and bars. Offices have moved into that area, just down the street from Navy Yard. They have created an electric part of town that didn't exist before. So could it be done? It's a little bit different with football because there's only 10 games. Yeah, right?
10
like
games,
it's
vastly different. I'm just talking about the experience of getting to games.
No question.
For a person driving is just awful.
It's such a hell.
And,
it is,
and only having one person that can decide how much to charge you for parking.
Yes, because you have no other option, right?
Right. There's no competition whatsoever.
I was hoping to take advantage of the competition on opening day. I got squeezed, by the way. I had an incident.
Yards?
Well, I decided that I was going to park. I did some research, right, the day before. I actually prepared and checked, and I found out because I was going to be going over and hanging out with our friends at 105.7 at Pickles.
Right.
So I decided that the options were I could pay for valet parking. What is that, right? The Hampton Inn that's right there by Pickles. I could pay for valet parking there, but I went ahead and did some research and found out that there was an option to park at the Marriott, and they charged $32.
Okay.
And I said, you know what? On opening day, I'll just take that. It's 3 blocks away. Like I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't $32 on opening day.
It wasn't $32.
No.
It was cheaper?
No, definitely wasn't cheaper.
57.
Yeah, go ahead, double the number. It was $60.
60.
It was $60. Now, what was nice is how they still had
now at least the Marriott's getting all this nice publicity.
100%, right? Oh, I don't care. I'm willing to talk about it because this is a bait and switch. They still had the sign out in front of the hotel that said parking $32. So I was feeling very comfortable as I pulled up to the thing and said, great, $32. And then I go to put my credit card in, and it says $60. And I said, well, that's weird because I was to understand it was $32. But you know what? It's fine. I'm here early.
Right.
I got time. I'll just
back out.
I just won't go. I won't. I'll do the thing where I take the ticket. And not an option. I have now 4 cars behind me. I can't back out. And you can't just get a ticket because they make you pay up front. So I got stuck where even if I had put my credit card in and left, I was still going to be charged $60 by simply pulling into the line. So, look, you guys want to advertise here? You want to be partners one day? I'll decide that I can like the Marriott. We can work through these things. But that was about as bait and switchy as anything I've ever experienced in my entire life.
That's
the definition of the type of thing that we should be protected from as consumers.
Right.
That was as bait and switch as it gets as far as being forced to pay an extraordinary amount of money beyond what I expected.
Before we get off the Commanders thing,
yes. Oh, I have some.
How much
was Dan Snyder?
Did you check your email? I have some audio I want to share.
Does
Okay.
Dan Snyder own part of the Marriott?
You know what? Given the way it went, it wouldn't surprise me if we learned that at some point, Stan.
But, talking about, how we were competing against only 30 other teams when Dan Snyder's in charge.
Yes.
Well, now that they have a new owner, how much is that going to impact? I mean, it might be too late at this point for them to go after Lamar
this year,
Jackson.
yeah, I don't think it changes. I don't think, well.
It changes the mood of the fans this year.
But
karma would be that the Commanders go like 11-5 or 11-6,
right,
and are really a relevant team again. That would be the best karmic event that could happen involving
with what quarterback though?
To Griffin's point, is it possible that this group gets in there and says we want to make a splash?
Right.
We want to do something electric. Let's call up and figure out what it would take to get this thing done.
Josh Harris and Magic Johnson come from a sport with guaranteed contracts, and how much would that play a role? We've seen Tepper, we've seen the Waltons.
There would be nothing that
owners.
would boost. I mean, obviously, it would create an amount of excitement. I would still be very.
I don't think that there's time enough for them to put.
Well,
it
we don't,
in
and that's part, we don't know when this is going to become official.
This might not
either.
be official for 6 weeks.
Like, is it impossible? No. Like, you want me to say I'll build in a 1% on the Lamar-O-Meter for that? Like, maybe there's a 1% chance that this all comes to fruition and that they're sitting around today saying, what is the number one thing we could do to immediately try to electrify this fan base on day one? And there's no doubt that of the options that are out there, there is nothing they could do that would electrify the Washington fan base more than being the team that aggressively tried to pursue Lamar Jackson. But do I think it's practical? Do I think it's definitely not likely? I'm not even sure that I think that it's practical.
Should it put more pressure on Bisciotti and DaCosta to get a deal done before next offseason when the Commanders may be ready to go all in on a Lamar Jackson-like quarterback?
Next year really starts to get interesting. Man. There's so many things that become interesting about next year.
Well, how he play, if in fact he plays this year.
Yep.
How does he play?
Yep.
And how does that factor into his value?
Does it demand? Does his play this year demand on its own that Steve Bisciotti says, "Look, I don't care. I no longer care what anybody else thinks. Like
I have to have
whatever your opinion is about me, other owners, I don't care any longer. I have no choice."
Or does it go the other way?
Does it right?
That he really stinks up
and he just says, "Look, man, love you, but
we're moving on."
Now that becomes tricky too, because now you're creating a scenario where you lose him without getting anything back from him, and that is a very difficult situation to have play out with it. Dude, I can't even. I don't even have the bandwidth yet to start thinking about next year. Like, I'm just not there yet.
I will throw one thing that Eric DaCosta mentioned when I asked him at the press conference last week. Are you confident that you will end up with more than 5 draft picks?
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of smugly said, well, 9 of the 14 years that I've been part of this, so we always end up. And he said not only more draft picks for this year, but I could see if there's a Patrick Queen trade, that it gets them a number 1 next year and maybe a 3 and a 5 this year or something.
I think it's going to be tough to do. Get a 1 for an inside linebacker at this point. Like, if Roquan Smith couldn't net a 1,
good point.
I think it's almost impossible. But could it get you someone's 2?
Yeah,
maybe. Right? Like,
I think the idea of them getting in a better position next year to trade up.
I've always thought the most likely scenario is one of 2 things. Either they're just not going to take the 22nd pick. They're just going to use that to try to acquire some picks. Or that they were going to trade Patrick Queen in order to try to get a to recoup a second-round pick.
I think it depends upon what's available to them on draft day.
It's a very fair part of although, they made the decision about Hollywood Brown a year ago before they knew, and somebody would say that bit him in the ass, right? Because they moved on from their receiver and they didn't get the receiver to replace him. But I'd almost be surprised. Like, I'm just so convinced they're not picking at 22. It's so funny because, we normally do draft shows, right, Stan? Like, over the years, we've always done these draft shows. And there is such a part of me that's like, I don't know if we should do one this year because I am really largely convinced that we're going to end up sitting here all night only for nothing to happen.
We get to react to a fun 31 pick first round.
Yeah, we could do that too. Hey, there is some audio that I wanted to share today before we wind down from today's show. Today's show is also brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Stan, are you familiar with what happened with Abbott Elementary and the Baltimore Orioles this week?
Abbott Elementary,
the television program, which is very good. I'm a fan of the show. Griffin casually mentioned at the end of yesterday's show, hey, apparently Adley Rutschman got a shout-out on Abbott Elementary yesterday, and I hadn't watched yet because I don't normally watch. This is 2023, and I actually watch Abbott Elementary. I like the show.
Very good show.
I was not aware. They didn't get it all right, but they kind of casually predicted something that might happen. I don't know how clean this audio is because it's somebody recording their screen. It's not the actual. But this is a scene. So one of the things you should know about Abbott Elementary, one of the teachers is a Baltimore sports fan. It's based in Philly.
Right.
So, they're all Eagles fans. But Gregory has been outed over the years as being a Ravens fan. Well, we also learned this week he's an Orioles fan. And so is one of the cafeteria workers. and they were talking about a fake Orioles game. They kind of predicted something in the process.
5-3-0s. Adley Rutschman hit an opposite field walk-off homer, and Cedric Mullins was a single shy of the cycle.
So again, they didn't get everything right. It wasn't an opposite field home run. But considering Adley Rutschman had never, which was wild to me, I couldn't believe it. And he says at no level had he ever hit a walk-off home run before. Yeah. They called the night before it happened Adley Rutschman's first career walk-off home run on Abbott Elementary on ABC on Wednesday night, which is wild. Great. By the way, very good show. And also, my God, I don't know what else there even is to say about Adley Rutschman at some point. Like
that was unbelievable.
His feel for the moment. Like, we already knew he was a really good baseball player. That was never a debate. But his feel for big moments, whether it was opening day in Boston, whether it was opening day in Baltimore, a walk-off home run yesterday when we were all starting to feel a little hinky about how things had gone during the course of the series. My God, this man, on top of being really good, has already proven in less than one full season of baseball to be incredibly clutch on top of that.
Adley Rutschman, right?
Adley Rutschman, 1,000%. I
like that.
Make sure we print the T-shirts before Josh can steal them for birdlandsports.com. Make sure you get that going. I'm running out of superlatives, and we're only a year in. Like, we're not even a full year into Adley Rutschman, and I'm not sure what else there is to say about the guy. He's truly unbelievable. He is already staking a place in the pantheon of athletes that we have been fortunate to watch in this city. There's nothing else to say. The other piece of audio is from Darius Slay, again, who we found out apparently had talked to the Ravens. He's got this podcast, Big Play Slay, and was being a little, I don't know, ambiguous, but I don't know what the word is that I'm looking to describe here. He's kind of suggesting that there might be something else coming for the Baltimore Ravens. This is from Darius Slay's podcast.
As a receiver, and they're trying to answer that with Odell. And I heard a lot of other news, but I'm going to keep them news to myself. That's probably want to go over there too, but I heard a lot of other stuff people want to go over there. But we go stay tuned, and if I'm right, I'm going to tell y'all I was right. But I'm going to let y'all just sizzle y'all little spirit with that one. But, yeah, man.
I don't know what to make of that.
How about how he potted that down?
Yeah, it was a better fade. It was a much better fade this time than we started the show. I have no idea what to make of Darius Slay suggesting there could be something else coming for the Baltimore Ravens. I know that somebody would say, well, is that DeAndre Hopkins, right? Is that what you're – because that's the only other player that's really been connected to the Ravens in a positive way. Somebody brought up Jarvis Landry to me. Like, could you imagine the thing that didn't work in Cleveland? You're like, but it's the
Lamar.
It's the Joe Blue thing, right? Like, but it might work for us.
Jarvis Landry played for the Dolphins, right?
At one point he did. He was with the Saints most recently, right?
Yes,
they were the
Saints last year. Then he was with the Browns. I guess pretty much the same time. Odell was.
And I was even when
the LSU guys.
I was in favor still of the Ravens taking a chance on him going into last year, but at this point it's just sort of it would almost come off.
It's because Rashad Bateman. That's new effect. Lamar and Bateman balances it out more.
Okay, I don't really know what you're trying to say.
Trying to defend it if it happens.
I mean, if it happens, again, you can argue it's still better than what it is that you've had, but I am unmoved by the idea of Jarvis Landry whatsoever. It does not move me one bit. All right, let's get a tidbit. Tidbit is brought to you today by PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Baseball season's here for the first time in history. You can bet from your phone in the state of Maryland. Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers for the best sportsbook offers and incentives so you can start winning today. Get up to $1,000 in a deposit bonus match plus a $50 free bet with DraftKings. Just go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers to claim your incentive.
All right, Connor McDavid ended the NHL hockey season.
God, I hope it's not a trivia question about hockey. We are not going to do well.
It won't be. So he ended the season on a 16-game point streak, while the Oilers, his team, ended the regular season on a 15-game point streak. The last and only other time that an Oilers skater and team had a simultaneous 15-game point streak, 1984-1985 season, with
Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky,
right?
yes,
Like, I mean,
yes.
yeah.
So Good company here.
Yeah,
for,
not
for,
bad.
For my Oilers.
No question.
And,
for your that's right. We
Yes.
decided you were an Orioles. I did forget about that.
Guess I'll come in on Monday with my McDavid jersey. I guess I have to now.
Okay. Sure. Why not?
Rays became the 4th team in MLB history to ever start the season 13-0, joining
I did see the Devils played in DC last night, right?
Yes.
Did Josh Harris make the? There was like some hubbub yesterday on Twitter about like imagine if they put Josh Harris up on the screen at the Capitals game last night, like. But then it's awkward because you're rooting for the guy that owns the team you're playing against.
Well, then they were eliminated. Those maybe it would have been. Maybe it would have been received
well.
So they became the 4th team, joining the 1987 Brewers, 1982 Atlanta Braves, and the 1884 Maroons, who went 20-0 to start the season.
I don't know what that is for the record. Stan, what do you got on the Maroons?
The 1884
Maroons?
Yeah. John Maroon owns the team?
John Maroon, Maroon PR. That's exactly what it was.
So that's what they're chasing. 20-0 is the best start ever to a season. Do you think the Rays can reach that, Stan?
28-0?
20-0. 20.
No, they will not reach.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Saturday night, so this past weekend, Nolan Arenado hit his career home run number 300, which he became the 8th active Major League Baseball player to reach 300 career home runs.
Oh, how about that?
So I want to see if you guys can name the 7 active players who have hit 300 home runs among active players. So 7. So the 7 others.
Okay, 7 besides. So it's Arenado and 7 others.
Correct.
I apologize. I was doing something on my phone.
300 career home runs, active players.
300 career home runs.
Has Bryce Harper gotten to 300 already?
Bryce Harper has not. He is at 285. So there's several guys that are very close on this
list. How about
Stanton? Not correct. Giancarlo Stanton is 3rd, 381.
Has Manny gotten to 300?
No, Manny is also just sitting outside along with Bryce. 284 for Manny in his career.
I gotta think of older.
Joey Votto.
Joey Votto is on this list. 342. 5th.
Paul Goldschmidt
also on this list. 316.
Nelson Cruz.
Yeah, Nelson Cruz is 2nd on this list. 461.
There's no chance he can get there, right? Like, there's no chance that he can drag this thing out
Cruz.
To get to 500.
I mean, what, he's going to hit 30
What's
this year?
What's he at now?
461.
No, he's not at 5. He's not going to hit 5.
But would somebody give him another
two
shot?
More seasons?
Yeah,
two more
right?
seasons.
Like, that's the part.
The rest of this season and next year.
What's he done this year so far? 1 home run?
Let's see what Nelly's done this year.
And what's he batting?
He is batting .310 with 2 homers through, let's see.
It's not. I get it.
20. If he hits 20 this year,
I'm inclined to agree with you that it's not likely, but it's not impossible
not
either.
Impossible.
And what a
It's
test
not
that would
impossible.
be if Nelson Cruz got to 500 career home runs. It's Cabrera, right? That I'm.
It is.
Yeah.
It is
I swear to God, I
Cabrera.
almost forgot that Miguel Cabrera is still
Is that
active.
everybody?
No, we have 2 more. 2 more. Miguel Cabrera, 507. He is the most active home run. He's the active home run leader.
Is Mike Trout past 300?
He is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Michael Trout, 353.
But Aaron Judge isn't.
Aaron Judge is not. Aaron Judge
Missed
only 224.
Missed too many games.
Freddie Freeman.
Freddie Freeman, he is just outside.
Son of a bitch.
293 for Freddie Freeman.
Oh boy.
Andrew McCutchen.
Andrew McCutchen just outside.
Son of a.
288
Son
for
of
Andrew McCutchen.
Goddamn.
His last one's it's a tough one. He is
JD Martinez.
Not JD Martinez.
God damn.
Jose Canseco.
283 for JD Martinez, not Jose Canseco.
I know everybody who's hit 280 home runs.
Yeah, he do. That's what I should have made it. Can you name the last guy that's hit 280?
I don't know.
The guy that has hit 300. He is currently on. He was an Orioles killer when he was in the AL East. He's currently on the Diamondbacks.
Oh, Longoria.
Evan Longoria. 333 career home runs for Evan Longoria.
That's a good question.
Carlos Santana is the last person who has hit 280.
I would not. I can't believe Carlos Santana really has hit 280 career home
Been around
runs
for a while.
Damn, that's kind of crazy. All right,
And played a mean guitar.
right. It just makes it even more amazing, really, when you think
That's why
about
he
it.
only has 280.
Right. If he had been able to commit full time, imagine the type of player that he would have been. All right, very good. Let's go ahead and get tubular. Totally Tubular for the weekend is brought to you by A.J. Michaels. Expert and award-winning A.J. Michaels Heating, AC, Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is coming up fast. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. Orioles, not athletics. They just finished the series with the Athletics,
God.
which is good because I don't want to see Sean Rooker ever again in my – or Brent Rooker. I don't want to see Sean Rooker either. I don't know who he is, but I don't want to see him. You all right over there? Uh-oh. I hope that is it anonymous? Are they after you? What did you do? Oh, man, I don't like that. Tonight, 7 o'clock on Masson 2, Tyler Wells and Mike Clevenger. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock. By the way, they play at 7 o'clock in Chicago, so it's 6 o'clock local time?
Yeah.
I guess it's just because it's a weekend.
6:10, I think.
Weekend game is a
start time.
2 o'clock tomorrow for Cal Gibson and Michael Kopech. Sunday at 2 o'clock, Grayson Rodriguez and Dylan Cease. Again, all those games are on Masson 2. NBA final play-in games are tonight. TNT, Bulls Heat at 7. Thunder Timberwolves at 9:30 on ESPN. Those teams advance to tomorrow. The NBA playoffs do get underway in full this weekend. ESPN has the first 3 games tomorrow. Nets Sixers at 1, Hawks Celtics at 3:30, Knicks Cavaliers at 6, and then tomorrow night Warriors Kings at 8:30 on ABC. On Sunday, the first game is on ABC. That's Lakers Grizzlies at 3 o'clock, and then the rest of the games are on TNT on Sunday. At lacrosse this weekend, Ohio State, Johns Hopkins is probably the big one of local teams. That is on Big Ten Network tomorrow. I'm sorry, that's actually Sunday night. I screwed that. No, Sunday night is Maryland Rutgers. When is Hopkins, Ohio State? I'll find it. It's on here somewhere. It's tomorrow on ESPNU at 2 o'clock is where you can find that one. And then Syracuse and North Carolina play down at Good Counsel at 4 o'clock tomorrow on ESPNU as well. Neutral site game. Everything else you can find at glennclarkradio.com. That's
You're going to skip over the biggest highlight?
What?
It is the NCDA Nationals.
Oh, for dodgeball.
Collegiate dodgeball finals.
I apprate you.
Are this
I appreciate it. Yes,
tomorrow and Sunday
I'm
on
YouTube. I'm going to choose to skip over
on
that
YouTube.
one.
Check it out.
Go ahead.
You know, there's this feeling because Maryland isn't dominant in lacrosse this year that they can't win that somebody else will win.
They could.
Definitely could.
Oh, yeah, they absolutely could win. I don't know that I'm convinced that they will win. I think that they are.
But a Final Four run would.
I would
being
almost
in the Final Four would not be surprising.
If you
at all.
said bet yes or no on them being in the Final Four, I'd definitely bet yes on them being in the Final Four. But they have been.
Is there a way to bet that on DraftKings?
I will have to check. There might very well be. I'll check on that.
A bit of a quieter weekend for non-sports things. There's a new show coming out on Apple TV Plus called The Last Thing He Told Me with Jennifer Garner and Glory Rice, where her husband disappears and it leaves them both like mysterious messages because Glory Rice is like her stepdaughter, and it looks kind of interesting because I like Glory Rice.
Okay.
So it looks kind of interesting.
Sure.
The Last Thing He Told Me on Apple TV Plus. Marvelous Miss Maisel. The final season 5.
I noticed. You know what? Shout out to Amazon. They actually put the shows on at midnight instead of making you wait till 3 a.m. last night, and so I did actually, before I went to bed last night, I watched the first episode of the final season of Mrs. Maisel.
My wife and I binge-watched a very entertaining program. Were you a fan of The Office?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, everybody is.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this series? It's on Freevee, which is Amazon.
Yeah, I've got Freevee.
Freevee. It's called Jury Duty.
Yes, this came out last week.
You were telling me about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
My wife and I binge-watched it till a point because she screwed up and said, there's 4 episodes of this, and she would repeatedly fall asleep during it. I got through episode 6 last night. Very entertaining. You know what takes place?
Yeah, it's like right.
It's
all staged except for
one
guy.
person is really on jury.
He thinks he's a real juror.
He's a jury duty. Yeah.
I will be willing to take a look. I'll be willing.
It has some moments that are very, very clever.
I'd be willing to take a look at it.
James Marsden.
I'm not opposed to it. And then
Saturday Night Live, Ana de Armas is hosting Saturday Night Live.
Right.
Who?
Yes.
Ana de Armas.
She was Marilyn Monroe and blonde. Yes.
Knives Out. She's done a lot. Karol G will be the musical guest.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Succession.
Related to Kenny G?
No.
Big episode of. Are you a Succession? Are you in on Succession?
Never watched
man.
Right after Succession, season 4 of Barry premieres.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
all right.
With Bill Hader.
All right. That might be. I need to dive back in on Barry, and it might be something.
I was an early lover of Barry.
Yeah,
me too.
I just didn't.
You know what's funny? I didn't realize people were down on Mrs. Maisel. Like, everybody loved it, and then I was reading like reviews leading up to this season. Everybody was like, "Yeah, it's been down for the last couple of years." I'm like, it seems like basically the same show to me that I enjoyed. And
how many years is it
I think
still on?
This is the last season this year. I think it's the fourth. It's either the fourth or fifth.
It's the fifth and final season. Yes.
I'm like, I've never given up on it. I've always thought it was just as sharp as it's just so witty and so quick. Like, it's the dialogue that makes you enjoy Mrs. Maisel so much. And first episode last night still had all of that, so it still works for me, man. Like, I've enjoyed it. Anything else?
Yeah, just the NCDA.
Yes.
All
right, enough.
Michigan State's my pick.
There you go. Very good. Can you bet on that?
No, I don't think you can.
Damn, that's a shame. We should look into that. Stan the Fan. Of course, you will be on with the boys tomorrow morning on the Bat Around.
Yes.
10 to noon. Paul and Zach talking baseball. Make sure you check that out.
I'll be on from about 10:20 to 10:45.
Very good.
Yeah.
Also, you will be back on Monday, as you mentioned, with Mike Boddicker
and Ross Grimsley. And then Thursday, Frank Remish.
And you'll have power rankings as well.
Power rankings on released about noon on Monday, and Luke and I come on about 3 o'clock on Monday with a deep dive into it.
Very good. At Stan the Fan on Twitter is how you follow him. Great to see you as always, my friends.
Always a pleasure.
Appreciate it. The kids were wondering if you wanted to hang out later today and just watch some Ninja Turtles with them. Like, if you just wanted to.
I've got a.
You got a thing. You got to see a guy about a thing.
Dude.
Yeah, that's true.
I will.
Thanks,
yes.
buddy. Well, I have something I need you to do instead, unfortunately. Yeah, you don't get Turtles isn't an option for you. All right. Thanks to I feel like there was something I wanted. Oh, Reed and I will be back on Sunday at 1 o'clock on 105.7 The Fan, so make sure you tune in for that. I know Ross Tucker will be joining us on Sunday. I don't know who else is joining us yet. I probably should spend some time with that. All right, I think that's it. Thanks today to Chance Stevens. Thanks also to Gavin Sheets. We'll get that up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God, it's so good.
tab at glennclarkradio.com. I don't think we have anything lined up for Monday yet. We will deal with that when we can, when we have the opportunity. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners. AJ Michaels, Glory Days Grill, Royal Farms, Costas Inn. You want to say anything about Costas Inn real quick?
It's that time of year,
crab season,
where crabs are harder than ever to get because everybody sort of has their appetite whetted for crabs. You got to make your crab plan. You know, you got to call the Costas at 410-477-1975 and reserve your crabs, okay? Because it's tough to walk in there and get the size you want or even have any crabs.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
410-477-1975, the Costas Inn.
Thanks also to Hartford Community College, Guilford Hall Brewery, Birdland Sports, your local Toyota dealer, and buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Stan. Thanks to Griffin at Griffin_Bass on Twitter. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great weekend. Go Birds. Go local lacrosse teams. Duke sucks.